guys, this is Sim, welcoming you back to DTTV. Today we're going to look at some more complicated modelling than the stuff you've done before. As you can see here, we're working our way towards doing a craft knife and all the component parts that are inside it. So this is the first part of the tutorial, and you'll be making the left hand side of the product. So we're going to go to File and New. And throughout this process, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk you through different ways of doing things. So we're going to have different ways of looking at the views and various other bits and bobs. Now normally we use corner rectangle, but today we're going to use center rectangle. And I'm going to go normal 2 using the standard tools. From the middle of the origin point, bringing out a rectangle and then dimensioning it. That one's going to be 30 by 20. And you notice that the centerpiece here is pointing at the origin point, and that's really important because that's going to dictate everything that follows. I've exited out to the sketch. I'm now going to sketch again because we're going to create a loft. And what I'm looking for here is the plane that cuts perpendicular through this, so at 90 degrees. As you can see, it's the right plane here, so I've clicked on that one and I'm going to go normal 2. So I could use a normal 2 there, or I can click on the plane here. So it's completely up to you which one you use, the preference is yours. So first of all, I'm going to set up using my center lines. You'll notice that I use the center lines quite regularly throughout this process to give me given points, and you'll use this a lot. So that's 80 millimeters to that one, center line again, and I'm going to come up from here. Double clicking to remove the center line, and then I'm going to give it a distance here of 4. That now gives me my points that I can put a 3-point arc through, and this is the path that my loft is going to follow. Roughly give myself the curve that I know I want. So you should do the same, and smart dimension it from that line. And it's 200, so it gives us this sort of fairly shallow arc. Exit out of sketch. It's important that you exit out of sketch and click off everything. So as you can see, nothing selected, everything is grey, and then we can choose the swept boss base, so the sweep tool. So we've selected the first sketch as our shape, and then the profile, and then we've then swept through that shape. Now I'm going to sketch on this front face here. We're going to use the convert entities. Now you'll notice that the actual face itself was selected as blue, and that's given us these black lines around the edge. If it wasn't selected, you wouldn't get these lines, you'd have to draw them yourself. And I'm going to extrude that 58 millimeters along. Now, there is a bit of an inconsistency on this back edge here, but that's not an issue. As you'll see as we go through this, that will not be a problem. I'm now going to sketch on this flat face, and what we're going to do here is we're going to start chopping bits of this this sweep away. Again, using our line tool, we're then going to give ourselves some key lines. What I'm doing is I'm following the lines that we've already got. I'm going from this bottom corner here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to find this until we get our 45-degree angle. Now, this doesn't always pop up. As you can see, it's popping up there. Yes, it will try and snap to other things around it, so be careful on that one. I'm going to trim to closest and remove the lines I don't want. And I'm going to fillet this corner to 16mm and green ticket. What I want to do is I want to chop this off, so it doesn't actually matter what this outside shape looks like or the size of it, because the line is the only thing that really matters. Extrude a cut, make sure I'm going all the way through. I'm happy with that. So back to the original shape again, click sketch. You'll notice it's selected, and I've clicked convert entities, same as last time, to give us another sketch. Exit out that sketch because we're going to be doing a second sweep here. Finding the same plane we used previously, the right plane, and go normal 2. Again, same process. I want to put in my 3-point arc, but I need to know where it's going to go, so we're going to use the center lines. From this bottom corner, it's important that you pick the same places as me. Smart dimension that one to 65. And we're coming down this time. and 7.5 on that one. Go back to my 3-point arc from the corner to the new point, give myself roughly the right curve, and then I'm going to change it in this radius box to 120. So first time we use the smart dimension, second time we've just changed the parameters in the box. So as you can see, I've exited out of all my sketches again, back to the sweep tool. Selecting the profile, which is this box, selecting the path, which is our curved line, and green ticking that. So this is the rough shape for the standing knife itself. I'm now going to sketch on the flat face up here. You won't be able to sketch on any of the other curved shapes at the moment. So it's the flat face, and go using this to go flat too. So you can see there's another way of looking at the view. This time I want to have a standard rectangle tool, and I know I need to chop this section off here, so I've just roughly drawn around it. Measurements for this sort of thing are not necessary. I'm going to flick it the other way and green tick it. So what we've done is we've flattened off that top surface. Right, sketching on the side. Now you notice I'm going to use the sketch this way instead. That's pinged it upside down, so I can go back there and go normal to it, and it flicks it around. So if you're ever up the wrong way, you can always rotate it round. Okay, so from the center point, now it has to be from above the origin point. I've clicked on the line directly, and I'm going to chop out this section here. Now you'll notice that when I selected the curve at the top of the thing, knife, I actually picked the midpoint. And I'll do that quite a few times throughout this process because it helps you to understand your reference geometry. I'm drawing a line across the front of the shape, and I'm making sure that this particular measurement goes at 90 degrees to it, and it's 5 mil. And again, I'm looking for that center point. This one's a bit harder to find. So I'm going to use that one, and I'm going to click to the top of the line there. So another line over the top of the existing product. Clicking on the two lines, so they're both selected. This is a 4 mil fillet. Green tick that one. And again, we want to chop off this bottom section, but this line around the outside doesn't matter as long as it joins up at both ends and makes an island as normal. And as you can see, that's going to work quite nicely when I do my extrude cut. Again, it's long enough, so I'm going to remove that. We're now going to fillet. These are quite large fillets at 8 mil, and it's important that you pick the correct lines. Now if I pick this one, so I've got the whole face, didn't want to do that, right click and delete. Zoom in to make sure I can see what I'm doing, and I'm picking this edge. And I'm going to propagate. Now as you've noticed, I've selected two of the lines, because tangent propagation is on, it's selected it all the way to the far end. I'm going to do the same on the other side. And again, it does the right thing, and I'm going to green tick that. Sketching up here onto this particular face. Go normal 2. Now this bit's a little bit more complicated because we're going to cut the curved shape into the front of the blade. So I'm just drawing a line randomly here. And then I'm going to smart dimension between the two. 3.5. Back to my center line tool again. I'm going to have to zoom in for this bit. What I want is a line that cuts off straight across the front, because I need to be able to find the midpoints in a minute, so I'm going to trim these lines. From the center point here, coming out to the far edge. Now if I want to trim this line, I can trim it here, but I can't trim it on the other side, or I'll delete the whole line, so I need to draw another center line above the line that we've got for the existing model. Now I'm able to trim it. As I said, for a lot of this I'm using center point, so you'll see that happen in a moment. So find the center point here, I'm going to drag to the right. Notice the yellow a square with the black line through it says that it's straight. This is then 15, and the other line I've drawn here needs to be quite precise too. So 2.01 on that one. Now in the opposite direction to the left, and we're going to come up from this point as well, and you'll see how this works in a minute. 13 and 1.75. So I've now got my points that I need. I'm going to use the Spline Tool or the Path Tool. So from this corner to this point here, to the midpoint, to the 1.75, and then to the front. Now if you go too far, that can be a pain, so you can always wiggle it back and then double click. And again, we're going to chop this piece off, so I'm going to go from this point and then very roughly around the outside. I'm going to mirror these entities if I want them onto the opposite side. Now it's automatically selected this line, which I'm happy with, so I'm just going to pick the other lines, and now I need to tell it where the middle is, and it's that original line here. As you can see, the preview looks right. Happy with that. And we're going to cut that through. Now at the moment, this is as if you were modelling the whole product. Obviously we are only doing half because I've already modelled half of it for you. So should you be modelling your own, you'd have to go through this process with this mirroring, etc, etc. However, we're now going to chop this in half. So selecting on that top face, finding a midpoint, and then just drawing a rectangle. Make sure your rectangle is on the correct side, because otherwise you'll chop the wrong half off and you'll be modelling the same half that already exists. Happy with that, green ticket, that gives me half of a model. So this is the bit we're going to work on. We're now going to shell it, fillet it, and do various other bits and bobs. First thing to do is to chamfer the top edge. Now it's distance, distance. You should put in 4 and 2, and then select the correct lines. Yours may not look the same as mine when you do it, so be wary. And I'm going to work my way along the lines, selecting them in turn. You'll notice I'm not just selecting random lines along it, I'm actually picking them one after the other. At the moment it's going around the corner, I don't want it to do that, so I'm going to uncheck tangent, and it then stops on this corner for us. You'll notice that it is narrower than it is deep, so the 4 is the distance down and the 2 is the distance across, so you need to make sure yours is the same. And I'm going to do a fillet here as well. Now whereas last time we switched off the tangent, on this one we can actually use it. So all I'm doing is selecting one single line, and you'll notice that the tangent goes through and then it narrows and it gets this whole section just because I've selected that line on its own. Green tick that. And that in principle is our basic shape. I'm now going to shell it. Thickness of 2 mil. It gives us our hollow shape to work with. You should probably save yours now. And I'm going to zoom in and sketch on this particular face here because I need to work out where the midpoint is. Again, we're going to use the origin point, which should be sat in the middle. And the radius of this is going to be 4, so the diameter is a total of 8. And I'm going to extrude this up. Now when we extrude it, I'm going to do it to surface. I'm going to pick the top surface of it so it knows how high I want it. Equally, I'm going to draft it. So clicking on the draft symbol and then typing 4 degrees in there, and you'll notice it's now narrower at the top than it is at the bottom. Back to my sketch tools, sketching on the top surface. Going to put a line. You'll notice that I don't connect it to anything, and I make sure that it is straight at 90 degrees. If you connect lines, ends, or the ends of lines to things, that becomes a real problem sometimes. So 8.5 on that one. And then off there. Again, I'm deliberately making this longer than it probably needs to be. 57.5. The reason that I either do it longer or shorter is so that it doesn't snap and fix to any midpoints, any curves or any existing geometry. That can cause you all sorts of issues if you try to add in dimensions afterwards. So that one I accidentally clicked on the line below, so I'm just going to remove that and do it again. So a similar issue in terms of snapping to things. So I've zoomed in to stop that from happening, and that's now 2. Continuing on my centre line. 18 on that one, and then we're going to go down. Again, making sure it's sitting at 90 degrees. And that's 15. So yours should now look like this. Okay, from this top corner this time rather than centre point, dragging along, giving us another dimension. This one's 60. And I'm going to draw a circle on that endpoint there. Diameter of that is 2, so the radius there is 1. As you'll see in a minute, that last one wasn't totally necessary, but you should do it anyway. This one's slightly larger here. So smart dimensioning this one differently. 5.5. And another circle on this point here. Again, being careful not to snap it to any of the existing geometry. 2.75 as a radius because I'm doing it with the controls in the drop down. So there's different ways of doing it. So making sure that you're paying attention to whether it's a radius or a diameter. Okay, from that top edge I'm just going to draw a line, and it needs to be within the boundary of the edge, but it doesn't really matter where those lines are, and this one coming straight down. So both of them at 90 degrees to the centre points on the circle, and then trimming off the extra lines that we don't need, giving us a valid island. That's now given us the islands we need. SolidWorks wants to put those the wrong way, so switch them the other way. And then this time I'm going to say to body. Click on the body that's coming down to, and you'll notice then it actually propagates them so they meet very smoothly on the surface. Okay, we now have our key fixing points where the two sides of it will actually join together. Sketching on this top surface, normal to, and zooming in. Now if I roll around the edge of this, it will give me the centre point, and my cursor will automatically snap to it. So I'm going to do that for each of those. As I already said, this first one wasn't necessarily the only way of doing this particular circle, but this will do here. And 1, so it's exactly the same as the original. Zoom into these and make sure they're the right size too. So 2 is a diameter, 1 is a radius, depending on which dimension you're using to do this. Okay, we've got those, and I'm going to extrude those up. So they're the small spigots that join the two halves together. 2 millimeters in height. I'm also going to fillet the top edges of those. 0.2. You can select the face for this. You could also select the edge, the choice is yours. Accidentally chosen the wrong line. Right click, delete. Be a bit more precise, and then green tick it. Okay, now we're going to sketch on this surface again. Using the circle tool, and that's going to be a 2 millimeter radius or a 4 millimeter diameter, and I'm going to extrude cut that in. That's going to be done to a depth of 6 millimeters. As you can see from the preview, it doesn't go all the way through. Once again, sketching on that surface again. Normal to. And what we're going to do now is we're going to start creating the webs. Now, you can use a normal line, or you can use a centre line for this. There is a webbing tool which you can use, which is quite complicated and doesn't always generate as students want. So I'm just going to do this a slightly different way. sort of probably a more simplistic way. What I've done is I've got my centre lines in, and then I'm going to draw 2 more lines parallel to that now. All I'm making sure is that these are straight. As you'll notice, the endpoints are sitting within the boundaries of the shape as well, so I don't have to snip anything off in a minute. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to dimension between the centre line and that line, 0.75, and the other way. I could have done this with offset entities, but sometimes it makes a short error where the centre line in the middle actually converts into a standard line, which you may have noticed on one of the other previous tutorials. So I'm just going to join those ends up to make it into a valid island. We also need to not have the web going through the centre, so I'm going to zoom in, use the midpoint and just drag and drop it so it snaps on top. That gives me the circle which I can then trim to. So trim out the lines I don't want, the ones in the middle first of all, and then the ones of the circle that I don't need either. Green tick features and then extrude, and again in here we're going to go to body, click on the body, and as you can see, previews it, green tick it. So webs and features like this are a very good way of improving your grades in your coursework, so you should consider how component parts are fixed together and how they are strengthened. So adding this level of detail in is really good. So from the centre point, straight across, and then 2 lines which I'm not connecting to any particular part of this vertical line. Pop those in so they're 2 different lengths. 8.5, 38, and then I'm just going to simply draw a box. Now the box needs to overlap the top edge of the blade, because what we're doing here is we're actually going to chop a slot for the spigot to move up and down, as you'll see when I do this cut. So it's chopping into that top edge of there, 2mm, so you need to make sure that yours chops away the same section that mine has. Same surface again, using a slightly different way of sketching on it. Normal way of looking normal too. Okay, this bit needs to be quite precise in terms of how you go about it. .35. And from that new point that we've created, I'm going to bring this along and roughly follow the sort of bottom edge of our shape. That then allows me to click on this line and this one and put in a degrees of difference, and it's going to be 82. Clearly being precise with our dimensions is important at this stage to make sure that the 2 sides connect properly. Going back to that point now, I want a line that's at 90 degrees to this one, so I've just rolled back over it and it gives me the ones in yellow. Click that, you can see that's now at 90 degrees to the diagonal that we've just dimensioned. That should be 1mm. Different way of doing a line that's parallel. Click on this one. Now it's selecting chain, so I'm going to deselect that and go for 1mm. Reverse the side so it goes the other way. That's what we want. Okay, and then within the boundary, because we want the 2 to merge as a face, click on there and I'm going to trim off these end pieces. Okay, we're now going to do the top face. So use the top line, reverse it, and then this dimension here, 20.52. That has to be precise, otherwise you'll get collisions and issues. So from this line here where we've got the cut, we're going to come straight down. And we're going to trim out the lines we don't want while we're here. Now by rolling over this line and then clicking this point, it should then give me the line that keeps it completely in line with the original. Click above, circle, come back to give us an island of this sort of pointy shape. Green tick. have a quick check that we've got the bits we want, and then again back to our extrude, and guess what, up to body, click on the body. Okay, this isn't previewing, which is always a concern. That sometimes means that something's been sketched wrong, there's a part that doesn't quite meet, or you've got an extra body. So it tells me that I've got a open loop, so I can deal with this by zooming in. You'll notice the sections start going pink. So roll between those, so I've got that section, roll between this, and then go to here. I could have both, so that one and the one above it, but we actually don't need that. So we're happy with up to body. That's the face that we want it to choose, green ticket. So yours might have worked the first time if you'd have drawn it better than I did, or you can do it the way I have. Alright, we're getting there now. Some fairly complicated sketching on the front here to allow the blade to come out correctly. So zoom in so you can see exactly what you're doing. So going along the edge as we have done previously. Smart to mention that. Again, making sure it comes out at 90 degrees and not at any other angle. 0.75. Centerline tool. Top edge. We want this to be parallel, so what we're looking for is the yellow line tells us. As you can see, that white line is not. So I'm struggling here to find the parallel, and it has to be parallel, so let's try going the other way. Okay. Because it's centerline, it won't affect what we're doing, and because we've now got a line to form off, we can then draw off that line. However, my line is now too long. So red cross that, and then we need to do a bit of trimming. Trimming out the original bit of line, the added bits of line we don't need, say yes. Redimension it. .35. Coming up. Smart to mention that one too. 1.37, so a very precise measurement in there too. Now we're just going to use our line tool to join that point to that point. Use the fillet tool to fillet there to here. So 0.5. So if you try and do it with a line that's too big, it won't like it. Let's try it again. There we go. That's the top part of our cut. What I'm doing here is I'm finding a line that's parallel again to the original and a line that's parallel to the front. I'm going to trim out these two pieces of line, and again we're going to use our fillet tool. It's set to 0.5 already, so we're happy with that. Back to our line tool. Find the midpoint to the end of there, and this one down to your original line. That isn't particularly important, and again just around the outside so that we're joining and making ourselves an island shape. Double click this so I can green tick it and extrude cut, and that's previewing, so it's happy with that, and I'm going to set that to 0.5mm and green tick it. Okay, so now the blade will smoothly run out the front. We also have an issue here that the internal components of the slide will also hit this top section here, so we need to actually do a further cut. So similar to the last one in terms of setting it up, cutting it out. So I'm making sure I'm normal too, I'm sketching on the top face. From this corner, this time I'm able to get a straight line. I'm going to smart dimension that. 4. So coming up, give that a dimension 2, and we're just going for 1 on there. Okay, keeping that line parallel on that face. Another line coming from the midpoint here, so midpoint. And then we need to make it attached to this line here. What I'm doing is I'm clicking it so it's directly below the 1mm line that we put in previously. I'm going to come up at 90 degrees as we have done before. Smart dimension that, making sure that my dimension comes out at the right angle. 2.5. And then from there to there. And from there to there. Green ticket. And I'm going to fillet this bit. So it's already set to 0.5. Just happy with that. And then features, green to that. And extrude cut. .25 in that one. Again, I'm looking at selecting the contours, so that's the important one. I can select the other one as well, as we talked about, and it makes sense for this particular cut to do so. And that chucks away that bit and gets that cut in place. We're now going to sketch on the opposite side. Time to brand the product. And I'm going to plan how this fits. So again, using our center origin point and a couple of lines in there, and then smart dimensioning between the point and the line coming up here. This one's then 14. Right, now with the text tool. Typing my text. I don't want to use a document font. Scrolling my way down. Now I've already identified a good font for this. There is a fair bit of clicking at this stage, right the way down to Franklin Gothic. You can use something else if you choose, and I'm going to make that 22 points, but I know this one works. Now you'll notice I've already clicked away from the line, so it is not attached to these lines. I could attach it to these two lines, but that causes issues if we start clicking them. So right click on that one and then delete that one. Again, I could just choose this line and manipulate it around. You obviously don't want to do these things, so I'm just going to delete that. What we need is the point in this corner, so green tick that. Once I've green ticked it, I now have this point. That allows me to drag and drop this wherever I want it. So pop it onto there. And then features, and then extrude cut. So I've rotated my view around so I can see what I'm doing. It's a very shallow 0.1, green tick that. And I have my branded handle. Final thing to do is to fillet some of the edges to allow us to identify the split line. And there's going to be 3 different sections to this. So this line and this line, so the top edge. It's a 0.2mm fillet, so that's that one. Back to my fillet tool again. Again, choosing my lines in order. That's automatically chosen the others around the corner. Happy with that, 0.2. And then back for the last fillet. Bottom edge. Happy with that, so you've noticed that the fillet then previews. Once it previews what I want, green tick it. And there we go. So that's the second half, well, your first half, but my second half. So save that. When you save it, you're then going to be asked to then make a couple of other parts. So the slide, the blade, and the right-hand side of the blade, the knife, are available to you. You'll then need to make the spring and the bolt that sits through the middle of the other part, and then make the following technical drawing. The technical drawing is on A3 and includes an exploded diagram, as you can see at the top. That's something that is covered in another tutorial on DTTV. Okay, thank you very much for watching.